Hello, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are here today to talk to you about planning your marketing for 2024. Don't know about you, Hannah, but it's getting to that time of year where putting your heating on, so it's time to start thinking about next year.
Definitely, because I think we all know as marketers, literally the year always goes sort of like January, February, March, April, and then suddenly it's November, and then it's Christmas, and then suddenly you're trying to on your back foot, trying to plan for the next year. So we're talking about it now. So we're getting ready. So
I'll tell you who we are to kick things off. So I'm Jane, I'm founder and director of Entwistle Creative. So I've been working with many clients over the years, helping them plan their marketing.
And I'm Hannah, I'm head of content here. So let's get started. So best way to start, we can have the slides please, thank you. So best place to start really is at the beginning. So I'd start really by having a good review of the year. So how did 2023 go for you? Really have a look at sort of like what worked, what didn't, what went right, what didn't go so well. And I'd really start this by looking over your business objectives. So if you write them all down, and did you meet them all this year? And maybe if not, why not? So take a deep dive into all your channels. So this is where I'd really get all of your reports and your analytics out and really analyze each channel and see how they worked for you, if they delivered, if they didn't. And I think it's maybe the time to start getting a bit brutal here. I mean, if they're not working for you, is it time to cut that channel loose? Obviously, we all know things change, particularly, social media. You look at Twitter or X now, as it's called. Obviously, that's changed quite a lot as a platform. What really worked for you maybe 2-3 years ago, you might not be getting the same out of it now.
I think like you said, Hannah, by looking back and looking at everything together, it's a good opportunity, because I think what we see so often is businesses will put, say, we're doing an exhibition. As we just talked about, the year races ahead. It can be like 3 weeks before that exhibition, you think we've not got everything ready for it. So it might not necessarily be that you've had something in your plan that's not worked for you. It might be that you've not activated it, really.
Yeah, exactly. You might not have had time to, because things get in the way, don't they? You might not have time to actually do everything that's on your list. So, and this is where, obviously your strategy comes in. Like, what did you mean to do that you didn't do? And that bit, I think, is really important. So I think by now, if you're kind of looking at your strategy going, well, we didn't get to do that, maybe start looking at why. So first place is to probably start by looking at your assets. So I'll probably hand this over to Jane. Get the next slide.
Yeah, I think it's so important really to slow down. I know we're telling you to speed up and start thinking about next year, but we have got time on our side. And I think really, if knowing that you want to perhaps, I think a lot of people are wanting to attract new clients and get the brand awareness out there, but we would say really slow down and look at your what we would class as owned assets first. So have a look at where are you driving people to, instead of racing ahead saying, well, we know we're not doing any advertising, we're going to switch it on now. Let's start by looking at your fixed assets, if you like. So that things that fall into that would be your website. If you've got any kind of brochures, whether they're digital or print, these are the things that you're not really going to be updating so regularly. You might be adding to them or tweaking them, but they are kind of like your fixed assets, but really important because quite often they're the hub of where you're driving everybody to. Video, again, depending on the nature of the video, it might be that you've got a video that you feature on your site, and is that right? Is that still reflective of the service of the business that you're offering to clients?
We've found so many of our clients, and they have, and it's an all right video, but you can tell it was filmed 10 years ago, and half the people in it don't even work there anymore. Is it time to have a bit of a refresh?
I know, and I think to put it into sort of perspective, it's almost like if you were about to open a shop, but you were still in process of the renovation of that shop, would you start putting out advertisements to get people to come along to your shop? You'd probably not. You'd probably want to make sure that everything was polished, shiny, in place. And it's the same with digital. You'd want to make sure, have a look at where you're driving them to first. Don't say our advertising's not working. Have a look at where you're driving those.
Exactly, yeah. If you put all your money into ads and then you put them to a website that doesn't actually have a decent e-commerce process, then
if that's what absolutely. So then moving on from owned, we'd look at your earned assets. So I think once you've got your kind of core content right, then you start to think about what type of content are you putting out there? Do you communicate by newsletter, some sort of e-shot, social media? And it's not to say that you wouldn't continue with this while you're working on your fixed assets, but certainly as you review, this should be the order that you start to consider. And then things like PR, SEO fall into kind of your ongoing earned. And then moving on to finally, your paid. So paid advertising, paid social, PPC. So once you're really starting to put money behind driving people to your core content, you'd want to make sure that's correct first. I think also it's all part of your strategy. I think if you're working with a big paid advertising budget, but you know that your site does need work, I wouldn't necessarily say that you just cut that off. But it's certainly saying, let's go back to the beginning and review from the start and have a look where we're driving you to. And I'll expand on this a little bit more a few slides in.
Yeah, definitely. So now we've kind of had a look at a bit of your assets. Next slide, please. I think its next step is to start looking who's delivering your strategy, and that is, of course, your team. So how does your current internal team look? Have you realistically got enough people to deliver your strategy? What are their skill sets like? Do they, are they all aware of your business goals? Is everybody talking to each other? Do they know what they're doing and how to do what you need and how to do it best? Mm-hmm. So the last thing that anybody wants is sort of a team of jack of all trades and a master of none, which we all know can so easily happen with really small marketing teams. You're one person, you're trying to do absolutely everything, and you can't do a million things well if you're trying to do everything. So it's a really good step at this stage to start going, how have we got everybody that we need? Do we need some external support? So I know, obviously, I've worked in both in-house and agency, and I know from experience how great that partnership can be. Mm-hmm. You really get somebody who can look from the inside in, really knows your industry and can really help you out on those bits. They can come up with different ideas because, see, they're not in the day-to-day. They can see you from kind of a window perspective, and it's... Yeah,
I think it is. It's that creative angle, isn't it? And that was how we first got in contact, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Hannah had spotted when you were working in-house a creative piece of content that we'd put out there, and I think you'd probably identified sometimes you're so close, as you say, in the business that you need to be taken out of your comfort zone, and that's where it works really well with agencies.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's worth also sort of mentioning here as well is sort of like how all your teams are communicating with each other. Sort of like, are sales talking to marketing? How does all their strategies align? Is everybody aware of and working towards the same goals? So it's really good at this step, I think, to look at your internal comms as well. And it may seem really simple, but it does amaze me how many businesses are still working in silos when we speak to them. And it's like, oh, actually, no, like sales team are having their meetings all by themselves, marketing have meetings all by themselves, and nobody actually talks to each other. So really get everyone aligned and working towards the same goal. And of course, approval processes as well. So are they slowing you down? I mean, there's nothing that's more of a hindrance to the creative process than some like trying to get a reactive idea, especially signed off by 17 different people. And before it's gone. You either do it then or you don't do it. And it's
a really good point, that, Hannah, because and I think this is where it helps to really start to plan now. And I think obviously there will be unknowns at this stage, but at least if you've got a framework, and I would absolutely say that approval process should be taken into consideration, because you do want to move quickly. You want to make sure it's on brand and it's correct, and you're not going out with some shocking typos, but at the same time, there are certain things that you just want to move and you want to get onto, and you want to be reactive and proactive.
Yeah, 100%. So now we've looked at your teams, it's probably time to let's start looking at your customers. So what do they think? Have you asked them? Have you had any feedback? So I think it's a really good practice to make it your mission to find out why your customers chose you, how they found you, and sort of most importantly, what that process felt like between sort of finding you and choosing you and all of that. What did it look like and feel like to them? So I've found that all too often marketing strategies can be a lot about me. So what do we want? And it's just so easy to fall into. But instead, it should be focused on what your business needs to do and say, and how to attract ultimately your ideal clients.
Yeah, I think you want to know, don't you? The good, bad, the ugly. It's an opportunity to hear what you're doing particularly well. where there is room for improvement, and also, like you said, to get into that mindset, think like a customer. What kind of hooks can your marketing really use to? You might not land that customer on a X amount per month, but is there a way in that you can start to promote to how did customers join you? What was it? What's that kind of sweet spot that you can pull them in, and then obviously
exactly
build that relationship.
Yeah, and luckily I think it's the point that everybody tends to miss, is that you actually already have access to your ideal client. They are your customers already, so make sure you make time and ask them what they think of you, and really get that feedback, 'cause it's really valuable, because it's the key thing for a marketing strategy that works, is make sure you understand your customers better than anybody else, and they're right in front of you. So feedback is absolutely key to this. So next step, it's all about the money.
I think budget, you can't avoid it, and I think this is where it can be really tricky for in-house marketing teams if there isn't clarity around budget, because they'll be obviously wanting to do the best, which will include spending money in different areas or proposing different things. And if that's just way off budget, not at all within the next 12-month plan, then it can be quite disheartening if you're working in that marketing team, or if you're looking to engage with external agencies who are coming back to you with quotes that aren't within the budget. So, and I think you can get a lot better value and use out of your budget when you do look at that as 12 months as a whole. To pull out a couple of examples, I know we support clients with award entries. So again, that can quite often be a last minute thing. Oh, there's an award coming up, can we put forward? So we like to have that in the plan, because it's not just about the cost of entering the award. You've got to think, how many of the team are going to go along to the awards night? What's the build-up around that?
It's one of those things that actually it seems like a small, it's only £100 to enter, but actually it can go into the thousands by the time you take into account all the costs. So.
But on the flip side, they're great. They're great for clients. They're great for the team morale. They're great to showcase that you're top in whatever sector you're working in.
100%.
But I would say that you do need to, and as Hannah mentioned from the start, by looking back, start to really analyse where did you spend last year, and also what falls into marketing, because we quite often see other departments stealing the marketing. Sometimes some companies do put events, that's classed as marketing. Let's have that clarity really. What is marketing? If you're upgrading an internal system, which sometimes people like to put into IT, or there's certain things that touch on HR, I think we just want to try and avoid those kind of internal disputes around that's not marketing, and just be really clear and have a good steer on at least kind of a bracketed range of what's the budget going to be. That's not to say, obviously, if you do get to the stage where you're running an ad campaign that's working really well for you, you might say at this point we're going to review the budget because it's working particularly well. We are going to increase it, but I think the worst thing is to just go into the year clueless and have the team sort of saying, well, there's no point putting it forward because that's out of budget now.
I know, and it's such a shame as well when you come up with an idea and then it's just kind of like, oh, well, we don't have the budget for that. It's so pointless in a way as well. So if you at least have all of this stuff sorted out early, you know what you're working with and you can plan accordingly.
And on the flip side, if the budget is tighter and you know what you're working with, it's also an opportunity to be more creative. Okay, well, we're not going to go for that this year. How are we going to get around it? What are we going to do? So very important. Know your budgets.
So now that you've done all the legwork, it's time to actually start planning and building out your calendar. So from here, I recommend definitely working backwards. So try to figure out where you want to be at the end of the year. So what are your goals for the year? So back to what I said right at the very beginning, looking at those objectives again and seeing how they fit into your calendar this year. So try and plot it all out. I mean, obviously plans may change, deadlines will shift. That's almost a certainty. You know, we had pandemics, we have things just come out of the blue. It's like, you know, you might see an award that you want to enter, one thing, you might see an event that you want to go to, you might, things will change, but that's totally fine. Calendars change all the time, and it's always a good idea to get what you want to do and where you want to do it in, or when you want to do that sort of thing by. And if you have that plan in mind, I think you're far more likely to stay on track and ultimately reach those business goals and get the most out of your year.
Hannah's been quite modest on this slide, but I've never seen plans like Hannah's plan. And the nice thing about working around the calendar is it also gives you the chance to really look at if you've got different service offering or you've got clients or customers that fall into different segments. It's making sure that your content is varied and it is planned out, so you are not every single post that you're putting out there is we're looking for staff because as a potential customer that can be quite off-putting, but at the same time your recruitment will be a focus. So it gives you the chance to look at those channels and make sure that everything that you're putting out is varied, but it is hitting the right audience and there's nothing that's going to it's getting balanced really. You want to look keen, knowledgeable, but not like we're desperate to get this service out
and
there.
you want sort of like a bird's eye view of it as well. And it's so, as I mentioned before, I think it's so easy when you're in the moment to kind of forget what you're kind of doing almost, because you don't see it from that external perspective, whereas kind of like an agency or somebody out from the outside, like your customer, would probably look at it as like, well, obviously struggling recruiting here, so there's something going on internally, when that's probably not the case at all, and you've literally just, you want that new marketing exec. Exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to take you back on the next slide slightly to some of the content that I touched on at the beginning, which was looking at your assets in order. So we talked about owned, which is your fixed assets, just to remind you, like your website, your brochures. Then moving on to your earned content, which is more your content that you put out, your social media, your newsletters, and then in the final section it's paid. So again, when you are planning, it's nice. We've put quarters here, but this time frame might change, and just really start to think roughly. It doesn't have to be completely accurately, but what's going to be your focus and how's that budget going to be aligned to which section. So from the start of the year, it might be that there's a higher percentage. These are just made up figures, but it might be that 80%, you've got a new site you're looking to launch, and that's going to be your focus, your prime focus for the first 2 quarters of the year. So we know that that's where a big allocation of the budget's going to go. In the meantime, we want to keep some of that regular content going out there, but we're just going to hold back on paid. We're going to wait until that site's completely, at least in first phase of launch, before we start switching on that paid advertising. And having this little focus, it's quite a simple diagram. It just helps align your teams really to start to think about when somebody says, can we place an advert in this publication, or can we run some ads here? Well, let's just look at what the focus is, where we're driving them to, and what the impression is going to be. And actually, yes, of course we can. It's great that you're thinking about that, but actually looking at it, that's going to fall in Q3 or Q4.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously we've kind of like looked at it here, but obviously this will change depending on your business as well. So you might want to up the paid a little bit sooner if you are kind of like, as I mentioned before, sort of like an e-commerce or something brand that might be more important to you. But
and we work with quite a few companies in the legal sector, and I know that when they're on certain cases, they do have to have the paid advertising running. That is their source of they're constantly looking for new leads, and the paid does absolutely work for that. But that's not to say you don't want to be improving your assets continuously as well.
Yeah, definitely. So once you've got all your plan in place and everything, so the next one. But don't stop me now, don't stop there. So of course it absolutely doesn't end with your plan. As I mentioned earlier, things will definitely change at some point. So it's really important to keep reviewing as you go. So keep listening to your customers, your competitors and your industry. So keep an eye on kind of everything that's going on. Social listening is really, really important. So keep looking at where you are with your industry, what events are going on, what's happening to people there, what your competitors are doing, and your customers, what are they thinking? Are you constantly getting feedback? Are you checking if they're happy and this? So there's loads of different things to keep doing, and those will change your plans as well. And most importantly, be creative. So
get your vest on.
Get your vest on, sing a bit of Queen, but try different things out. So test what works for you, what works for your customers, and definitely save some time for those ideas as well.
And I think you can, once you work into a plan, a lot more, can't you, as well? And I think when people throw ideas at you, or when you think, do you know, that'd be so fun. You've got your core plan in place. So it does allow you that time to be more creative.
It does, rather than working on the back foot all the time, the one thing that planning really does help you with is creativity, which I know sounds actually kind of the opposite almost. but I think it does give you that time to be creative as well, because you're not constantly chasing yourself. So save some time for ideation. It's really important. That's it.
Yes, we've given you a lot to think about. So I know that we're working obviously with lots of clients and we are planning for next year. So if you're listening to this thinking, yeah, some of that certainly resonates, or we're looking to plan, but you just want to run any ideas past an agency. Sometimes, again, even where to start with questioning your clients, how to get that feedback, what software to use, how to pull the teams together, how to align. I think marketing falls under a lot of hats. So it can be difficult. By all means, pop us any questions. We really want you all to succeed next year. I think there's lots of exciting things happening, and the more we can get those creative ideas out there, the better.
Yeah, 100%. So we have got our little team on in the comments section now. So any questions, feel free to pop them to us, or of course get in touch with me or Jane, and we'll come back to you.
Yeah, and thank you for potentially spending a bit of your lunch break with us involved in it. We've enjoyed being part of your day.
Yeah. All right, take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.